Back with the right here on Pro Football Today. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, and Joe Lisi. And the top of the NFC market almost saw a big shift with the Thursday night game between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. We were following your Super Bowl outright odds on our in-game coverage where we saw the Detroit number starting to fall in games where, or in spots where the Packers were favored to win that game. Detroit currently sitting at plus 270. At some points, I saw plus 320, plus 350. So we know that that was a moving number. Detroit holds serve, though, in the game, and they now sit at plus 130 to win the conference. It is the Eagles, though, who are the second choice right now, Donnie, at plus 250.
Yeah, and I liked it where the Eagles are going, and I'm still going to stick to it here. Even though we had a close game, you watched, the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions play massive win by the Lions, which they deserve to be favorites. But I always said if the Philadelphia Eagles were to go into Baltimore and win that game, it looks like there's a legitimate chance the Eagles would run the table the rest of the way out, and Detroit might take a loss, be able to put them back into that spot. I'll tell you what is interesting, though, is how much they are figuring, Joe, between the Lions and the Eagles. Plus 270 to 5-1. You say, well, that's a decent little gap, but that's two NFC teams up top. Now, granted, you have the Buffalo Bills also at a 5-1 price, but typically how that market would go is Lions would be the favorite, then you would have to put the AFC favorite in, because in order to get to the Super Bowl, those two teams have to play each other, being the Eagles and the Lions. So I show that as a testament to how much they're looking at the Eagles like, yo, this team is legitimate to make a run.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
8 straight games by an average margin of 14 points per game, 2 touchdowns. I mean, they win today like we expect them. 9 straight, be the hottest team in terms of the NFL. And think about Detroit in terms of their schedule. They still have to play the Bills. They still have to play the Vikings. Who's to say they don't drop both of those games and all of a sudden the Eagles have the number 1 seed in terms of the conference? You can never say never. I think the Eagles right now, to me, are peaking defensively. Obviously, that was the cause of concern early on in the season. We've seen the rushing attack with Saquon Barkley. Now Jalen Hurts now attacking defenses over the top.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be a tough out the rest of the way. I mean, can Detroit maintain this from wire to wire is the biggest question. Can they do it? They've done a great job up until this point, but if we're talking margins, they haven't covered now the last 2 games. Is it starting to potentially unravel? I'm not suggesting they lose games, but maybe 1 or 2 where the Eagles can catch them.
The thing for Detroit, if they lose a game next week to Buffalo, I don't think it'll be like, defense is catching up, you're falling in seeding. I get that. Philly's in a unique spot. And it's a troubling one. People might disagree, but there is not a game remaining on the Eagles' schedule that they can lose where you won't go, ooh, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Today they lose. You go, oh, wow, okay. This team shot. Sirianni's
15-1 the Super Bowl.
I'll tell you. Let me tell you this, because I heard it when I was there, and I know you listened to, like, the WPI.
Yep.
They lose to Carolina today. Sirianni actually might not make it next week. Like,
Jalen Hurts, does he survive the cuts in the offseason coming up? Yep.
If they lose the following game at home to Pittsburgh, people will be really frustrated by that. Okay, maybe not as crazy, but like the way that they'll be rolling, you don't want to lose a game at home. It's followed up by going to Washington. We've seen what's been going on with the Commanders. And then the final 2 games are the Cowboys at home
And Giants.
and the Giants at home.
And the war.
So the all of a sudden, the Eagles' options are win 13 games in a row, or we're going to smash the panic button with a sledgehammer multiple times. And it's a lot to ask a team to win 13 games in a row. It just is.
It is. And it's almost like we talk about the New York market, right? Philly's that way as well, especially since you made it to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago and had Pat Mahomes on the ropes, right? Everybody thought it would be last year, 10-1. You fall off a cliff. You finish the regular season 1-5, get blown out by Baker. And now the expectation now with Vic Fangio, Kellen Moore in that offense where they were supposed to take off. Saquon has been every bit of the player that you thought when you acquired him. So there is no excuse anymore. But, I mean, you have to temper it a little. I mean, if they win 9 straight, 10 straight, and then lose 1 game. As a gambling perspective, I think you would take that. You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red. Like, sooner or later, the black's got to get in there right on the roulette table. So as you play it out, you're right about that. It also matters of who you lose to. Like the Lions, I guess, technically can afford a loss to the Buffalo Bills, but then still need to beat the Minnesota Vikings and still have tie-breaking advantages over certain teams. This is what makes it so crazy. And Kevin pointed out before we even watching that primetime game last week, ridiculous. I think it was down to minus 400 as a price for the division for Detroit, down from 700. I believe it was over 1,000, like a minus 1,100 now after that victory, and they're still only one game ahead of Minnesota. It's wild.
The Vikings are still behind the Green Bay Packers when we talk about the outright market. Like they're not buying what Minnesota's selling, whose game we're going to get to next. Let's get to the Eagles game today. I will tell you this. I didn't think this would be the case. I am not scared to take points if the Eagles are laying too many. The Browns, one of my favorite sides of the season. I actually lean Philly laying the points here. I refuse to do it. I can't get there. Maybe one day. My brain doesn't work that way. I'm not, especially in this NFL season. You can find a 13.5. No, I'm not doing it. But that is genuinely the way that I look. I ended up, though, playing this under at 45.5 because you have a Philly team that I think could have a little bit of that lull, right? Our favorite word on the desk. And Bryce Young is playing his first true road game since week 1. That's a very long time. And Bryce has looked better, but now he's going to Philadelphia playing arguably the best defense in football here. I'm not sure that Carolina offense looks as good as it has in the past few weeks. So I'm going to play some under at 45.5.
Yeah, I might be with you with respect to laying it with the Eagles. Again, I don't have a real feel. I'm always taking the points, but in terms of this type of situation, it is Carolina. They went toe-to-toe in back-to-back games. We saw Tampa Bay. They lose that game in overtime. They go toe-to-toe with Pat Mahomes losing the fourth quarter, now going on the road to what you mentioned, a cold weather environment with Philly playing the way they are. It's just a tough ask out of Bryce Young. I actually like the over here. It opened up at 45.5. We're seeing 44.5s in the market, Kev. I mean, I think this game could play out right on the number maybe, where they put up a 34 spot and Carolina maybe gets 21, 34-21. Maybe Carolina backdoors it, but I would lay it with the Eagles, but I really like the total 44.5.
Yeah, it's interesting where you lay on the total on this one because the reason I say this, I don't think the Eagles are going to have any problems here. Your problem with getting the total is going to be the Carolina Panthers if you have any, because for me, 28-plus points, you can already just send that to the bank right now for the Eagles today. 55-degree temperatures, 10-mile-an-hour winds, if even that, no precipitation in the forecast. The number one defense in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus, is the Eagles. The number 32 defense in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus, it's the Carolina Panthers. Devontae Smith held out last week. As they say, he was probably healthy enough to play. They wanted to give an extra week to heal. Him and A.J. Brown back now with that offensive line, with the quarterback and Saquon Barkley running wild. Punts should not be at a premium today for the Philadelphia Eagles. It should be points at a premium, which I do think they will score. My only issue, again, with this game going over is the Carolina Panthers. But having said that, look, better and better Bryce Young has looked here. He looked good last week, and can he get those junk touchdowns and junk yardage at the end of the game to push that through? Because I don't think we're looking at the half, guys. 10-6, 10-3 game where the Eagles have control. I think this might be the first game where the Eagles could have a strong first quarter, which is absolutely the opposite of what they've done this whole season.
I'm banking against it. And
10-6 at the break?
Yeah, like that. But yes, like 10-6, Sirianni's job's on the line. Like, why is it close? Like that. You mentioned Bryce Young, because I know we're kind of doing the top of the conference. Do you think he's done enough to save his job, that this Carolina team won't draft quarterback? Because I now think that is the case.
I said that to Donnie. I think it was last week. We brought it up. We both believe, and I'll let Donnie talk, but I believe he has. I mean, look at what he did last week. 298 yards, 1 touchdown. No interceptions 2 weeks ago, 268 against the Kansas City Chiefs. He's more confident. He knows where he wants to go with the football, starting to fit the ball through tight windows, Donnie, that we didn't see. He doesn't look like a deer in the headlights. He looks like the leader of that offense. I think he's the man moving forward.
Yeah, and you owe it to him as well. With the turmoil he's been through, we've seen better quarterbacks fall by the wayside. And if you just say in the offseason, let me get the kid some help and really see what we can do in year number 2 with Dave Canales, absolutely should be back. And also, I don't really know if we're looking at that generational quarterback that you could take to bump him out at this point.
Yeah, I don't think the quarterback class is going to force their hand. Just the perception of it. Yeah. Like, we can think what we think, but there isn't a Caleb Williams, a Trevor Lawrence, an Andrew Luck that we've seen force teams to make those type of moves. Let's get to Minnesota. Bring Kirk Cousins back to town.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by Guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell is one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Back right here, it's Pro Football Today with a big ball game in Minnesota. Line moving.
Yes.
Wow.
Creeping. Could we see 7, 5.5? They look like they're gone, Donnie. Tell me, Vikings, Falcons, what do you see across the board?
I'm telling you, we're open up at 4.5 at this point here. 6.5's now showing. If you just go FanDuel to FanDuel, 6s, 5.5s, a mixed smorgasbord out
Nobody
there.
even knows.
Like, jumping on this side, I'm going on this side. Which way are we going? There's no way you could ever have a best bet from this game with the way those lines are moving around.
Yes, and it is my best bet today because I see it clearly, laser focused.
Oh.
I see a team in terms of Atlanta that's lost 3 straight by an average margin of defeat of 11.2 points per game. We see Minnesota have close wins in back-to-back weeks. They pull it out against Arizona. They defeat Chicago by 3 on the road in overtime. They've won 5 straight by 6.7 points per game. We're right there in terms of the FanDuel market at -6.5. But it comes down to this. I have the more consistent quarterback, Sam Darnold, over Kirk Cousins. I know he's going home. I don't care about that perspective. I watched this game play out in terms of Indianapolis and Minnesota on that prime time where Minnesota blitzed Joe Flacco early and often. He couldn't do absolutely anything in regards to that matchup. Kirk Cousins coming off a 4-interception performance. I think Brian Flores, that front seven, get after it, and I think they run it, they throw it. They have their will in terms of do whatever they want against a smash job. Vape special minus the 6.5.
Wow.
I said it. Chris Koski for you, buddy.
Yep. 1.5 into the game, you're just
That's it.
vapes
Smash
outside
job.
because you don't have to watch it anymore. I like it.
Run to the corner store or something.
That's it.
Yep.
So this is a very, very interesting game because last week I looked at Atlanta as I'd like to bet the Falcons here, but I don't trust them, and the number's fine. Let me back off. I feel very, very similar in this game. I'd like to bet the Falcons here.
Yeah.
If you give me 7. I think I'm almost maybe playing a little trick on myself because I know they're not going to give me 7.
Right.
So that's how I got to lean the Falcons, but I'm not going to bother.
And I also saw it play out against Denver's front seven. He didn't even make it through the end of that game. They benched him for Michael Penix. They were getting after it in terms of the edge. If that offensive line can't hold up, he's going to be in trouble today. And then there's more turnovers, short fields, and I'm expecting JJ to hit pay dirt at -105.
I'll tell you what is interesting, too, when you look at the Atlanta Falcons. Like, this was a team once you got all the injuries to Tampa Bay. It was like, we're going to stroll. Like, this is the easiest division we're ever going to win. Now you're in some turmoil after a game last week where you have a high-paid quarterback that you're trying to ask yourself, is he really going to be our starting quarterback even in 2025, let alone the rest of the regular season? It comes down to me, Joe, because I love Brian Flores as defensive coordinator. That defense is going to be cooking. They're two dome teams, but also it is key where that dome is at because it's going to be loud in Minnesota. Bijan Robinson, I look at as that rushing prop at 68.5. If you are one-dimensional, which means that running game is not working, there's a chance for a blowout today, 14-plus point win for the Minnesota Vikings. But if Bijan can somehow say, you know what, let me calm the waters here, 70-plus yards on the ground, it's not all on Kirk Cousins, he's not going to be all excited here, I think that's the way. So once again, if you're saying, I want to bet the Atlanta Falcons, I don't even bet the Falcons. I just bet Bijan Robinson because if he struggles today, they're getting blasted.
Yeah.
So the Vikings are a frustrating watch for me because after they lost that game to the Rams, we were all together on prime time. On Game Time, we went through a number of updated win totals. And my favorite one, Minnesota, under 10.5 at a plus price.
Right.
They've gone on a 5-game win streak. I am not frustrated because I was wrong. I am frustrated because they have looked how I thought they would. And that is why, I guess, Lisi, I'm a little maybe surprised with your confidence in Minnesota because, look, they've won 5 in a row. And if you want to, look at the box scores with one eye closed, the Vikings, they're hot.
Right.
They're not playing well.
No.
They are not. Again, I knew that it was a softer schedule, but I thought one of the South teams could clip them. They got to play Mac. They got to play Flacco. It worked out in their favor, right?
Right.
Then the Chicago Eberflus nightmare rolled the way it always does. And then Gannon made a huge mistake last week with the field goal and everything. And look, they've made some plays.
Right.
But in the 5-game win streak, they've only covered 2 of the games.
Right.
They've one win of more than one possession. So this is a Vikings team that is actually reminiscent of the last time Kirk was there with a good Vikings team that everybody knew they're going to get picked off.
And you bring up great points. But let's keep in mind as well, when they went on the 5-game win streak, it started in Jacksonville, right? They won that game 12-7. Then they went to Tennessee. They win that game by margin. Is basically, I believe, a 5.5 point favorite. And then they went on the road to Chicago, right? They pushed that matchup. It was minus 3.5 for much of the week. They pushed. 3 road games, then they come home. They play a team that needed that win in terms of Arizona. Arizona's no joke. And we sat on this desk and talked about how dominant the Arizona Cardinals defense was in terms of the front 7, blitz packages, getting after it in terms of the quarterback. They battled back in that game, and Kyler's a mobile quarterback. So he was able to make plays with his legs, extend plays outside the pocket. I just don't think you're going to get that from Kirk Cousins. When he's stationary, and we've seen them play stationary quarterbacks, Minnesota's front 7 eats. So that's where I'm looking in terms of this matchup. Again, it's a chess match, but the fact that they're at home and they can run it with Aaron Jones and they have the best player on the field with Justin Jefferson that came on with 98 reception yards, I think he breaks out.
You know, it is interesting the way you look at their schedule, though. After blasting the Texans a couple months ago, after that Packers game, 31-29, 23-17. They lose 31-29. They lose 30-20. Then the winning streak that they have, which is 5 games that you point out, which, again, it's hard to win in the NFL, don't get me wrong. 8 points, 5 points, 10 points, 3 points, 1 point here. So there's a chance that you can still hang around because that defense is good and that's what they rely on. But for me, it's just about Bijan Robinson. He can run them into this football game and keep it close and maybe get the victory. If he's not up to the task, I don't think they win this game.
So, again, it's actually kind of ironic that it's Vikings, Cousins, and it's this Minnesota team that's not covering. One of the – you and I now have done this, for a long time, specifically about the jokes of, well, if they're going to win, they're going to cover, right?
Yeah.
And I remember the team that kind of broke me a little bit one time is you said that about that Vikings team.
Yeah.
And I was like, Donnie, stop. They literally, all they do is win and not cover, right? And then they ended up losing the game out. It didn't matter. But we look at this Vikings team, and it's like, yeah, they won by a field goal. Like, it wouldn't surprise me in the least for them to win this game and not cover. And but when that happens, that's when we start to sit back and go, ooh, they could get picked off. I'll make this point, though, because I can't help myself. It's interesting how we're all willing to say about Minnesota, but nobody would dare say it about the big bad boogeyman up in Kansas City. It's the same darn thing. We'll go to the Niners and the Bears next.
she was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell's one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Pro football today, live on SportsGrid. We go out to the Bay. Niners, Bears. Preseason. If I handed you the slate, you might have said, ooh, game of the week there between Caleb Williams and the big bad 49ers.
Niners.
Well, not so much. 3.5 to 3 point spreads out there. I'll let you know. It's my favorite side on the card today. Ooh. I love the Niners laying 3.
Oh.
I love it. I think we're getting maybe a little bit of a buy low because Eberflus was fired. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I don't think that's going to heal all. You have a pretty banged-up Bears offense still coming in on the injury report. Swift, Moore, Roshan Johnson out for this game. Keep in mind, this is a Chicago team that is winless on the road this season. I believe their first cover on the road was last week against Detroit. Don't forget they trailed 16-0 at the half of that game. It's a Niners team that I understand has now been beaten up a few weeks in a row. Situations couldn't have been worse. You had a backup quarterback go to Green Bay. Then they show up in Buffalo in the snow. They lose McCaffrey. That obviously does not work their way. I know that we maybe go back and forth on what is home field worth. Old school 3, new school 1.5. Meet me in the middle if you want. I still think you line them up. The Niners are better than the Bears. And I don't necessarily believe that firing Eberflus is going to be the magic potion that turned the Chicago Bears into some big bad machine. I'm laying the 3 with the Niners.
Brother, I'm with you because I saw it the same exact way. And here's the thing in terms of the Bears. They don't have a true road win. The only road win came in overseas in London. They're 0-5 away from Soldier Field. So that's another added cause of concern. Even with Thomas Brown calling the plays, now he's the interim head coach. So those play calling duties, are more, going to put a lot of pressure on Thomas Brown. They've lost 6 straight, Chicago, by an average margin of defeat of 7.6 points per game. San Francisco has gotten outscored, 73-20 in back-to-back games against the Bills and Green Bay. I think this is a step-up spot. This is an opportunity to beat down a team that's, riding a 6-game losing streak. It might be close for a half, but in the second half, I'm with Kevin. I think San Francisco runs away with it. Can't get to the total because I'm not quite sure what Chicago gives you, so I lean San Fran in the under.
It'll be interesting. You're right. San Francisco, to me, it looks like it should be their spot, but there's 2 ways you can play the Chicago Bears football team. That you get the bounce bounce with the Eberflus out of the building. I don't really buy all that much into it, but we'll see who comes to the starting gate because Swift is banged up. He's expected to play, but how effective can he possibly be? Also, Keenan Allen banged up along with DJ Moore, so it's not a great situation for them as we always talk about all those injuries that pile up for the 49ers. But I will say this. Is it too much for the Bears today? Because they fought hard against some of the best teams in the NFL the previous 3 weeks. The Packers, 1-point loss. The Vikings, 3-point loss. The Lions, 3-point loss. And you saw that calamity at the end of the football game, which ended up getting their head coach fired. They're on that sort of mini bye here, but as it plays out, is it the we're playing and we're tough, we just haven't got the breaks yet, now we're going against a worse 49ers team than the last 3 we played? Or was it, my goodness, we're exhausted. Now we're on the road at this point, and basically our season is over. I'm actually tending to lean a little bit more on the Bears than I am the 49ers today. Yeah.
Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Because I just don't know, like with Thomas Brown, that's the biggest concern that I do have. He's fighting. Any interim coach wants to be a head coach in the NFL, right? You want to showcase it. Does that take away from the play calling duties? Because that's where Caleb actually has shown progression.
Listen, I think it's one of those things where it's hard to judge like the way like what would this number be if the Niners were healthy? The amount of work that you would have to do to because that's
10.
Okay, so McCaffrey's in, Ayuk's in,
Trent Williams
is in, Trent's. I don't even know, right? So I can't sit here and tell you like, whoa, they've overreacted.
The easiness of the 49ers for me is gone because the one thing we used to always love to, like me, Brock Purdy over 1.5 touchdown passes, 27.5 points, put that in the block. You know when they get in the red zone, they're dominant because they're running it. Now it's like, okay, Isaac Rendo, do the same thing as the other two running backs. It's hard to do.
So here's one thing is, I like Rendo more than Mason. I think the kid's got pop. We watched him enough at Louisville. I know, Lise. I think Garendo can come in and also give them a little bit more in the pass game than Mason did.
Yeah, I like Garendo as well. He's a tough inside runner, physical, gets to the edge as well. I'm concerned about, the one concern I do have is Deebo Samuel. I mean, dropping passes, fumbles on the kickoff. I mean, we've seen him with the drops. Juwan Jennings, my guy, the number one option right now for Brock Purdy. Guy's a star.
Let me tell you, they would have given you the price on him to lead this team in receiving.
Whoa.
I know you would have taken it, and you would have been sitting in an unreal position, all things considered. I'll tell you that. I think another key thing is, and then we're going to get to some party over, some totals on today's slate. The number matters here. Like, if this was, and I know this will sound, but like, if this was 6, like Minnesota, Atlanta, that's a lot.
Yeah.
A field goal for the Niners in their building, I got to be able to take that chance. Let's get to some party overs next.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell is one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Back right here on SportsGrid. We got to whip it around a little bit because we have a lot of potential totals on the board today. We begin in South Beach. What?
Yeah.
With the Dolphins and the Jets here. Miami, a 6-point favorite. Lisi, this total checking in now up to 45.5.
Yeah, I mean, Dolphins still fighting for a wild card spot. I don't know if they're going to make the wild card, but I think they should dominate this ball game. And again, we saw Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle get involved in the second half performance against Green Bay. I think they start fast. This is a beaten down team for me against the New York Jets. They couldn't pull it out coming out of the bye last week. What are you going to get on the road? It's a divisional game, but I'll go over. I'm a little hesitant because I don't know what you're going to get out of the New York Jets, but I'd say we get points here.
I think we do too. But hey, Alan Lazard's back in the air. I've been waiting all year. Like, I had Garrett Wilson on one side, Devontae Adams. These bums out here. I need Alan Lazard, so he'll be back today. But also, the question's going to be for me is, can you just look at the Jets and say they're going to fight back? Like, I don't know. I don't know if you get that. But the one thing I do know is their best cornerback, even though he's been ultra physical this year, getting a lot of penalties, Sauce Gardner, not playing today. So that secondary advantage here for that you usually think you have with the New York Jets is not there. You have two wide receivers that should be able to exploit downfield. And also, we talked about Jonnu Smith is all of a sudden, the reincarnation of Tony Gonzalez, apparently now getting 10 to 12 targets a game, 100-yard games, 2 touchdown games, and away we go. But I do think the Jets are going to get points today. No Breece Hall in the backfield. I think it's more of a passing game for them, but a short passing game. Because the one thing we do know is it doesn't matter what defensive line it is, they get home against the New York Jets. I think we get points in this game, but 2 has a big game. And how about this? I love this bet, too. Over 2.5 total touchdown passes for this game. I bet that as well.
Okay.
So 3 on the board wins it. I do think Aaron Rodgers plays into it. There's too many weapons for him to not score 17 points in this game, which means 2 touchdowns, 1 at least in the air.
I think we could see a bell cow Braylon Allen game from this team.
Ooh.
Tyreek Hill averages 100 yards per game in his career with 2 as his quarterback. 61.5 today. No Sauce Gardner. That's a buy low spot that I'm interested in big time as well. Browns Steelers. This game is historic, let me tell you. 43.5 total, under.
By the way, news just came out. Pickens out today.
Oh.
Ooh, that's a big surprise.
Yep.
Whoa.
Pickens out. Look, Hammy shows up. Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Or Donnie protested. Maybe he says, you know what? I don't like the way Russ is really doing things out here. Threw for 400. I didn't get enough. Let's get Fields back.
Coach told me I got to be a man. His being a man, taking care of my hamstring. I'm not playing today, Coach.
The Pickens memes are actually some of the better ones online right now. I like the under in this game, Lisi. I thought Pickens at minimum being limited would help that. This is a touchdown higher than the Thursday game. The weather conditions were not a touchdown worse in that game. I do not care. And I am selling 2 teams coming off games that featured at least 60 points in them. Give me the under 43.5.
We're seeing it the same way because I thought this total, based off of Winston throwing for 497 and Rush throwing for 414, we should have been 45.5, 46, just based off of that performance last week, and we get a 43.5. Again, Pittsburgh doesn't really want to play that way, the way they did against Cincinnati. They want more ball control. They do want to work off of play action. But again, the turnovers will be a key to coming under this total. I see it the same way. I think you get a little more Najee Harris. Arthur Smith goes a little more conservative, and Pittsburgh grinds out a win. I do like the points, though, with Cleveland. Give me Cleveland in the under today.
It isn't. You take a look at this game lined up. Now, Pickens out there. You did see him with a little bit of the hamstring issues, but they didn't really build that up during the week, but now he sits out as we can beat him without him. I understand that, but we joked about this earlier today. It's like, come on, man. We scored that many points. Like, Tomlin was embarrassed that they won that football game. It's like, let's get back to winning 13-10 type of games and also remind ourselves, this is a revenge game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, not because they're angry, because they lost to the Cleveland Browns in a snowstorm, and they played so recently. And you said, you know what? They scored 28 points in that final quarter, 4 touchdowns in the snow. They could do that again today. We know the ebbs and flows of the NFL and how things changes, and Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin are not entering into this football game like they did last week. Like, we're going to have to score points against this horrendous defense of the Bengals. We can do that. I think it is a more measured game plan today. And also, Jameis Winston, sometimes that balloon pops at times. You have those big games and terrible performances. I'm not saying we're in for a bad one, but you could get the 225 in the air, 3 interceptions, 2 in the red zone that buries this game.
It's both of them. Like, I'm not trying to look. Russ has been good, Donnie, right? But like, he just threw for 400 yards.
Yeah.
Jameis just threw for 500. This is how you sell high. To me, I love it. Raiders, Bucks, Lisi. We pumping it up in Tampa Bay?
I mean, you got a dead team in terms of Las
why did you
Vegas.
say that? Oh, I thought you were going the Buccaneers a dead team. That's not right.
No. He's trying to stir it up.
Yeah.
I mean, dead team with Las Vegas. But because of Aiden O'Connell and how he threw for 340 against Kansas City, I think he got some juice. We know Baker wants to push tempo, playing at home. Again, they're still right there in terms of the division. Tied with Atlanta. They did lose both games. But if they can win and Atlanta loses, they maybe have a head start to steal into the division in the last 5 weeks. I like Tampa, but I love the over 46.5. And Bowers, we talk about Bowers being a key cog for that offense for the Raiders. I expect them to eat today.
By the way, Bucky's up, who got banged up a little bit last week, who looked phenomenal against the Carolina Panthers. Clearly the lead dog now in that backfield. Mike Evans is also up for Tampa Bay. And quite frankly, if you are a little bit injured, you know what gets you healthy? Seeing the Raiders come to town in that secondary. So we've seen no weapons against a good defense on the road, and Baker Mayfield throw it around the horn. He should be able to do that regardless today. But I'm telling you right now, spicy special if you want to jump in. Sterling Shepard, Joe, we're going to alt him. 80, no. 70, no. 60, no. 50, no. 40, no. 30, no. 20.
Wow.
20 yards, we're going over Sterling Shepard. By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing. Shepard over, exactly. Over 20.
And by the way,
Bagel won't even be finished by the time
I've been seeing some videos of Krispies. You might have me on board for it.
Yeah, come on.
I'm telling you, crisp, fantastic.
Look at the undercarriage, Joe. Look at the undercarriage. Crisp.
All right, how about Giants Saints here? Boy, oh
Tough
boy,
one.
is this something?
Malik Neighbors is in, though. How about that?
That's a little surprising.
All right.
Dr. Donnie, though,
he
probably
won't
doesn't like to see that.
He won't finish that game.
Here's the thing. I took my chance on the Giants against the Dallas Cowboys.
Learned?
I would only take the Giants again if I was in this game. But I'm not betting the Giants 2 weeks in a row. I don't need that in my life here. That would certainly be the way I look in the matchup with New Orleans.
They're 0-6 at home. I believe that's the worst home record since 1974 in terms of the New York Giants. And you have New Orleans playing much better under Darren Rizzi. Darren Rizzi's coming back home, but they were laying 3.5. It's up to 5.5. I understand Dexter Lawrence is out. No Theo Johnson today. But I would take the points with the New York Giants. Again, I look at this game like the Giants believe with an interim staff that they potentially, maybe with their backups, can win this game somehow, some way, the way Dallas did on Thursday night. I think they're competitive. What that looks like is a different story, but I do like Drew Lock over the 193.5 passing. Give me the points. Could we get the total? I'd say yes.
It's such a shame that there's so many question marks because anytime you look at these two defenses, you just want to get after it. And sometimes you might say, playing in the Northeast, it's going to be cold, it's going to be windy. It's not really that way. Mid-50s, light winds, no precipitation. Like, you have a pretty clean slate and two really bad defenses. So usually you say, okay, well, let me look at New Orleans side of things. It's Alvin Kamara. Get him to get a touchdown. It's expensive. Alvin Kamara's rushing yards. That's going to be expensive. But the reason, it's just like when Taysom Hill goes down, the bells and the whistles go off right away for Kamara because he gets robbed more than any other player on that team because Taysom Hill runs wild in the red zone. He's not there. So now those handoffs now turn into Alvin Kamara touchdown opportunities. On the same side, Tracy at running back for the Giants. I think he has a great day. One of the worst rushing defenses in football is on New Orleans. But it's one of those where I don't want to take him and be like, oh, what did you expect here? The offensive line can't block. It's an ugly game at this point. So whatever way you guys go is fine with me. But it's a shame because if this game was 3 weeks earlier where teams were still playing for a little bit more, I would love the over.
I just say the only total that I remember going over is when Washington came to MetLife. That was 28-22. I believe that was the only total at home for the Giants. I remember Cowboys being a dead under, Eagles dead under, Minnesota dead under.
That was a long trend that was associated with DJ.
Right.
Every game he played at MetLife was a bang under. Quickly, game of the year, Jaguars-Titans. I think they need to flex this onto a Thursday, quite frankly. Play it at like noon or something. What an awesome game here, Donnie.
Let's go back to 2023. Touchdown score in this game. Tony Pollard, he's getting in the end zone today and 100-plus yards on the ground.
Maybe you get the over with Mac Jones. That's the only way I can look.
All right, we've got NFL insider Adam Kaplan up next.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell is one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here, it's Pro Football Today. We're now joined by NFL insider Adam Kaplan. And Cap, maybe can we have you be a college football insider? I mean, because we got a lot of interesting things going on. Maybe you spoil the bracket for us. That would save us some time. But I actually want to ask you about a NFL/college football story. Bill Belichick and North Carolina in the ACC. Some very real rumors out there. Have you heard anything in your circles around this situation?
Kevin, just from what I've been told for months is that Bill wants to be an NFL head coach again. He'd like to get one more shot. And now there's conflicting information out there, but my information tells me that having personnel control is not important to him anymore. He wants to go somewhere where he can win. He can do things his way, but he doesn't have to have control, Kevin. That means making the personnel decisions, which he got for over 2 decades with the Patriots. He doesn't need that anymore. But the fact of the matter is, someone who's known him for many, many years told me he absolutely wants to be an NFL head coach. So let's get to the story with UNC, right? There's nothing wrong with getting it out there that he interviewed for that job when he still prefers to be an NFL head coach again. Now, if you're UNC, you love that. This helps your program. Hey, they're going big game hunting. They're looking at Bill Belichick. Mm-hmm. So that's a big deal. But again, I'd be stunned if he winds up coaching at UNC or any other college job, quite frankly. See, the way I see it is, Kevin, if his agent strikes out, let's say, we've got 3 openings. This thing's to the side. UNC is willing to wait for Bill to make a decision. Let's say it's late December, and we see 7, 8 teams open, and none of them want Bill.
Yeah.
Then Bill's got to make a decision. Does he want to be a college head coach? But by the way, other teams might talk to Bill because he's free. They can talk to him.
So that, Cap, is kind of what I think makes this such an interesting one is, and obviously I know you know this well, but the NFL and college, they don't operate on the same timelines, right? UNLV's head coach just got, the Purdue job this morning, where I imagine, right, UNC probably needs to know from Bill before Bill would know from the NFL, unless, and I don't know, Cap, how often this happens, but he kind of gets the wink, wink, nudge, nudge, just wait for us, and you're likely our guy, right?
Yeah, you can find that out. No, you're right, because the college jobs, they move very quickly. In fact, it's amazing how a college head coach is coaching at the end of the season, and he's already got the other job lined up. I mean, that's college football. That doesn't happen in the National Football League. Now, it's a fair point that you're making. But again, if there are any openings in mid-December where we're getting close to, or later this month at the end of it, Bill might have a choice to make. But again, I'm told by someone who's very close to him that he's wanted to be a NFL head coach again. He wants one more shot, and he wants to do things his way. But again, personnel control, this gets to be thrown around like he wants everything. And my understanding is it's not quite true. So we'll see what happens. But it was a pretty interesting story. Bill Belichick at 72 years old, Kevin, you and I were talking about this off the air. It would be something. Not only see him to be a college head coach, but see him recruiting. Can you believe that? That would be great. Bill Belichick come to kids' homes at 18 years, 17 years old. That would be pretty interesting.
Cap, taking a look here from one great NFL coach who is now seemingly wants a job in college to another great coach that's in the NFL right now, and Andy Reid. Boy, he must be staying up late at night trying to get the backside left tackle to actually be healthy and playing well at this point to protect Patrick Mahomes. What are we hearing for the Kansas City Chiefs? Because even in the past couple of years, Cap, there's been a revolving door at right and left tackle with free agency, but now they're just down to injuries and signing guys off the scrap heap. What's going on in Kansas City?
Yeah, Donnie, it's funny because right tackle was a problem, and they brought over Juwan Taylor, and the left tackle. So what happened is they drafted Kingsley Sumatea, a second rounder out of BYU. Now, what I'm told was they knew he was a project to start. They wanted to see what would happen in training camp. He started 2 games, he got benched. They went to Wanye Morris, who was a third rounder last year. Okay, they tried it, 10 games, and this never happens. I can't remember the last time I saw this. They took Joe Tooney, their left guard, in last week's game, and they moved him over and they benched Morris. You just don't want to do that. And they were done with this. They'd been on DJ Humphries had been on the radar for a couple weeks anyway. So they signed Humphries. So I'm told a 1-year, $5 million deal. There's $2 million in incentives, which are based on playing time and teams' playoff achievement. So look, he's going to start today, and they're going to see what happens. They feel pretty good that he's healthy. Humphries turns 31 in a couple weeks, but you got to look at something here. When you look at Humphries, he's coming off an ACL injury. He also had a back injury last season. So yes, he only turns 31, and that's not ancient. He's certainly in the back 9 of his career, but he's coming off of a major knee injury, and he didn't have the offseason or preseason to take a look at him. So that is a concern here. This is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go here. You don't want to be doing these kind of things late in the season, but they're desperate, Donnie. They've got to get left tackle for their right-handed quarterback. That's the blind side. They've got to get this done. This is not good. This does play into a little bit why their passing game has been disappointing this season.
Cap, let's look at the NFC. Detroit picks up the win against Green Bay on Thursday night. They're playing lights out right now, best odds to win the Super Bowl. But your Philadelphia Eagles have won 8 straight. They get the victory today. They'll win 9 straight. Good value in regards to the odds perspective.
Yeah, I do. We haven't talked about them much, but think about it. To win the NFC, to go to the Super Bowl, they're plus 240. The Lions are plus 125. And the team that nobody talks about, somehow they have the same record as the Eagles or the Vikings, so they're plus 900 to win the NFC. But let's get back to the Eagles. Their opening odds to win the Super Bowl, plus 1,400, Joe. They're now plus 500. If you look at where they are from a health perspective, I know star tight end Dallas Goedert's on IR. He can't return to week 18 at the earliest. But other than that, they're pretty healthy. The Lions, though my understanding is they'll get most of their injured players back by the playoffs. The key for them is can the Eagles get the number 1 seed? And by the way, the number 1 seed odds for the Eagles, this is a great value at plus 190. That is a value people should be on because, again, they're the healthiest team of those two, them and the Lions.
You told us last week, Cam, you felt it was a really good spot for Baltimore, but that upset win for Philly clearly changing your perception a little bit about what it means for the Eagles.
No, you know why? Because Kevin, and you guys are Eagles fans, when you have a game like that, when you win on the road, when no one thinks you can do it, and you dominate like they did. I know they were down 9-0. It didn't look good, but then they took over and they completely shut down Baltimore. By the way, Baltimore's got issues with Deontay Johnson, Marcus Williams, the starting safety, making 12.
And their kicker.
Yeah, and the kicker too, Donnie. Good point. They're a mess right now, those Ravens.
Yeah. All right, Cap, we appreciate it so much, NFL Insider Adam Cap, when we get to the Sunday Morning Crunch next right here on Pro Football Today.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell is one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on SportsGrid. It is Pro Football Today. We are going to get to the college game, though. Those rankings will be on their way. Within the next 6 minutes, you're going to see the show begin.
We got to drop, Kev. We got to drop.
Give me your drop, DRS.
Minus 1,000 today. When we started the show for SMU to make the college football playoff, Alabama was like a plus 6 or 7 at that point. It's now down to minus 770 on SMU, plus 440 on Alabama. Still a massive, by the way, minus 720 just dropped to. Still a massive price. But it's kind of funny. Are people just plunking down money now? Like, in case anything goes crazy,
I think so. We're 10 minutes away. We're 6 minutes away from the reveal. People looking
it's like
for
the Christmas tree lights up right before the game.
Why not?
Like,
plus
ding, ding,
440.
ding, ding. Yeah.
Bama never getting to a favorite to me is the sign that they are out.
They're out.
We'll see. I will throw out some quick other movement. The 6 and 7 seeds now, minus 310 for Penn State to be the 6, minus 310 for Notre Dame to be the 7. I will just say, and yes, it goes against what I am projecting, but that is because what we are now watching is this committee be completely clueless. If these odds are correct, I'm telling you right now, no chance in the 14 format would Notre Dame have been left out for both Texas and Penn State losing in their conference title games. It's just not how it would have gone. Clearly, and I think we talk about change and things like that. This committee is going to say, please get rid of the conference championship games. You are killing us here. Yep. We don't know what to do with these. Because here's the other thing. They've got SMU right now, Donnie. Minus 270 to be the 12 seed, meaning Clemson would jump SMU. There's no way that happens. There's no way. Because that means that Clemson is going to jump South Carolina very easily within this process. I don't fully believe that that's going to happen here when we get these rankings in just a little bit. We'll get to all of this, though. We're going to really dive into this with you guys in just a few moments. So let's crunch it up. Let's make it happen. Let's give you our favorite props. All right, rip it, Lisi.
Yeah, so I like Minnesota today. Justin Jefferson's been tempered in terms of the last few games, been used as a secondary option. Not today, over 83.5. Receiving yards, I think they run it, throw it all over the Falcons. Give me JJ over the 83.5. Donnie and I talked about L.A. in the matchup with Buffalo. I believe Matt Stafford breaks out. I like the over. 251.5 to me is very light in this ball game. I think he gets to 275.3 later today against Buffalo. And then Chuba Hubbard.
Ooh,
I know Bryce Young is going to throw in this ball game, but if they have any shot, they have to keep Philly honest. Over 50.5 rushing for Chuba Hubbard later tonight.
That's an interesting one because if they're in the game, game, he's going to get the bulk of the carries there. We understand that. But if it's late, can they get those surprise runs for him? So we'll see what happens there. For my morning crunch today, 3 players, 2 of them from the Philadelphia Eagles, because this is one of the games I absolutely love the Eagles' offense. Devonta Smith over 45.5 receiving yards, coming back and is healthy against a bad secondary. Hey, you know he's going to want to get back and get in the game flow here. I don't think that's going to be an issue, which then correlates right over to Jalen Hurts, over 198.5 passing yards today. We have seen him temper it over the past couple weeks. The ground game has been dominant, which I think it will be again today. But no reason to believe he doesn't hit the 200-yard century mark at this point. Stop the madness. He's getting that done. And finally, Kevin's going to like this one. I already bet Sterling Shepard also 20 yards receiving to the over. Let's take him at his regular number, Joe. 28.5. He gets that by the end of the first half today. Sterling Shepard, let's go. Crunch it down.
I mean, is extending the olive branch there a little bit?
Look at that. Yeah.
I mean, really, a crunch card of
this could break our friendship if he ends up like 16 yards.
Yeah,
you might be relegated, even though you're an Eagles fan, to never giving out Eagles props again on the show.
No, I'm not even looking at the Eagles prop. I'm looking at the Bucks prop he gives out there. I think that's a nice sign of respect.
Yeah, Joe's not paying attention.
I think.
Well, I'm just saying the Eagles prop. No,
well,
I mean, even though he's a resident Eagle fan.
Listen, let me show you as well a little Eagles Bucks 1-2 step here. Jalen Hurts over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Baker over 1.5 passing touchdowns.
Wow.
Plus 136 for Hurts. Missed it in 3 straight. So you got a nice little bounce back spot on the cards here. Still 9 of 12 opponents have had multiple passing touchdowns against Carolina this year. That defense is still not all that good. It continuously is injured week in and week out. I think Hurts can toss too. Baker, it's a very similar story going up against that Vegas defense there that gives up passing touchdowns on a regular basis. And Baker now, having missed this a few games in a row, is in a big-time bounce-back spot. I like both those QBs. And I figured QB only on the crunch here. Why not? Plus 112, Kyler to throw a pick is a good number. He's been picked off 3 times in the last 2 weeks, which would almost be this anti-point of, now you have a Kyler turnover problem. But I'm getting a plus price when Seattle, Donnie, has picked off 6 straight opposing QBs. They've been opportunistic.
And sometimes you take a look at the 8. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. You just need the tip ball. You just need the ball to deflect somewhere, and you get the easy interception. I think it's a good look there at a plus money number.
Just takes one mistake. Ask my Ashton Genty under 54.5 longest rush play. Oh, my goodness. It turns into college football today. Next, maybe.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell is one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.